Today I am discussing about Part B of MST 17 Block 1, that is disasters. Disaster. This slide share is while the slide itself is minimalized, it set the stages for broad and critical subject. It an academic or professional context. The presentation begins with this slide would typically cover the following core areas, that is the classification of disasters and disaster management cycle, and that's all. And coming to the point, what is disaster? Disasters are generally categorized by their origin. Understanding the why helps in preparing how for response. And next, I'm going to the topic, classification of disaster. That is, and this line clarifies a fundamental distinction in environmental science and emergency management, the difference between a natural event and its human impact. The main concept of this point is we are often use these term interchangeable in casual conversation. They represent two different stages of crisis, that is natural hazard and mm, the hazard. What is hazard? It is a natural phenomena that has the potential to cause harm. It is a process of earth that occurs regardless of whether human are there to witness it or not. The main characteristic is it is the threat or the physical event itself. Example, a tectonic plate shifting, that means earthquake, a tropical depression forming, that is cyclone, or magma rising in a volcano. The main impact of disaster is what happens when the hazard meets a vulnerable population. It is defined by the consequences, the loss of life, damage to infrastructure, and disruption of the environment. The main key characteristics are it is the realized damage. A common way to think about this is hazard plus vulnerability is equal to disaster. That is the main equation behind this. And coming to the next slide, it is India's vulnerability to disasters. And this slide provides a concise overview of why India, sorry, why India is particularly susceptible to natural disasters. It highlights two main dimensions, the physical or climatic factors and the human or contextual factors. That means physical climatic factors, what happened, and in the case of human contextual factor, who is most affected. The first point in this slide is high proneness to flood, cyclones, and droughts. That means India's unique tectonic and climatic positions make it a goal hotspot for several types of disasters. What is flood? Approximately 12% of India's land is um, prone to flooding. This is driven by the heavy monsoon rains and the vast river system like the Ganga and Brahmaputra that frequently overflow. What is cyclone? With a coastline exceeding 7,500 km, India is hit by tropical cyclones from both the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, causing massive storm surge and wind damage. In the case of drought, what is drought? Despite the monsoons, nearby 68% of India's cultivable area is vulnerable to drought, often due to erratic rainfall pattern that impact food security and water supply. Next is a geographical vulnerability. What is vulnerability? Vulnerability is often determined by where a population is located. India's diverse landscape creates specific danger zone. Himalayans, in the case of Himalayan region, high risk of earthquake and landslides happen. Coastal belt means high risk of cyclones and tsunamis. In the central and western India, high risk of heat waves and prolonged drought. The third point is socio-economic vulnerability. This is a critical point on this presentation. It suggests that disasters do not affect everyone equally. A person's socioeconomic status dictates their ability to survive and recover. That is housing quality, resource access, and livelihood dependency. Housing quality means low income families often live in kucha houses. Kucha means is made up of mud and thatch, which cannot withstand high winds or flood, whereas wealthier individuals often have reinforced concrete structures. In the case of resource access, higher socioeconomic status provides access to insurance, savings, and better healthcare, allowing for a faster recovery. In livelihood dependency, many in India depends on agriculture. A single drought or a flood can wipe out a family's entire income, pushing them deeper into poverty. Next slide, that is cyclones and hurricanes. And based on the slide, here is a detailed breakdown of the concept regarding cyclones and hurricanes. Essentially, there are different names for the same weather phenomenon, a powerful rotating storm system fueled by warm ocean waters. The first point is energy source and low pressure system. And this point notes that these storms derive their energy from warm tropical seas. The main process is when the seawater is warm, typically about 26.5 degrees Celsius, it evaporates quickly, sending warm, moisture air into the atmosphere. The engine is as this air rises, it creates a low pressure zone at the surface. This causes surrounding air to rush in spiral upward and form massive clouds and rain, releasing latent heat that powers the storm like an engine. Third point is categories of intensity, and this slide list five categories used to describe the severity of this storm. These generally align with the Saffir-Simpson scale, which ranks storm based on their sustained wind speeds and potential for damage. Next slide is flood and tsunamis, and this slide provides basic definition for two major water-related natural disasters like flood and tsunamis. While both involve the movement of large volume of water onto land, their origin and behaviors are quite different. What is flooding? The this slide defines a flooding as the inundation of land, that is covering dry land with water. This typically happen when the volume of water exceeds the capacity of natural or man-made system due to heavy rain, drainage failure, etc. Heavy rain means excessive rainfall can cause rivers to overflow their banks or create flash flood in areas where the ground cannot absorb water fast enough. Drainage failure means in urban environment, if storm drains or the sewage system are blocked or overwhelmed, water accumulates on the street and enters the building. The second point is, tsunamis. Unlike regular waves caused by wind, tsunamis are a series of massive ocean waves triggered by a large-scale displacement of water. Underwater earthquake means most tsunamis are caused by tectonic plates shifting under the ocean floor, that is subduction zones. In landslides, a massive amount of rock or ice falling into the ocean can create a splash effect that sends waves racing across the sea. The main key characteristics as these waves approach shallow coastal waters, they slow down but grow significantly in height, leading to devastating surges. Next slide is man-made disasters, and this slide focuses on man-made disasters specifically highlighting how human intervention and environmental neglect can lead to catastrophic events. The main point in this slide is the definition of man-made disaster. Man-made disaster are extreme event caused by human activities and negligence or the failure of man-made system unlike natural disasters such as earthquake or flood. These are preventable and often result from technological failure, environmental mismanagement, and socio-political conflicts. Technological failure means industrial accident or gas leak, etc. Environmental mismanagement means deforestation, pollution, etc. Socio-political conflict means war or terrorism, etc. What is environmental degradation? And this slide notes that these disasters are often induced by human activities that degrade the environment. This refers to the deterioration of ecosystem through the depletion of resources like air, water, and soil. When the natural balance is disturbed beyond repair, it can trigger large scale crises such as climate change, resource depletion, and pollution. Climate change induced by excessive greenhouse gas emission, resource depletion leading to famine or water scarcity, and pollution means large scale chemical or radioactive contamination. One of the example is Bhopal gas tragedy. The and Bhopal gas tragedy as the primary example. This is widely considered the world's most industrial disaster. The date, the December 2 to 3, 1994. Location of this tragedy is Union Carbide India Limited, UCIL, pesticide plant in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. The main cause is a highly toxic gas, methyl isocyanate (MIC), leaked from the plant due to safety system failure and poor maintenance. The main impact of this tragedy is immediate. That is, thousands of people died within hours from respiratory failure. The long-term effect is hundreds of thousands of suffered permanent disabilities, including blindness, respiratory issues, and birth defect in subsequent generations. The environmental effect in the soil and groundwater around the site remain contaminated to this day. The main significance in sustainability is understanding these disasters is crucial for the environmental ethics and sustainable development. It underscores the importance of industrial safety standards, environment impact assessment, and accountability. Industrial safety standard means implementing rigorous protocol to prevent leaks. Environment impact assessment means evaluating the potential risk of human project before they begin. Accountability means ensuring that organizations are responsible for the environmental and human cost of their operations. Next is disaster management cycle, and this point outline the disaster management cycle, a continuous process by which individuals, groups, and communities manage hazards to avoid or reduce the impact of disasters. It is generally divided into phases that occurs before, during, and after an event. Then phases of disaster management cycle is mitigation, that is pre-disaster. This phase involves taking steps to reduce the overall risk and long-term impact of a disaster instead of waiting for an event to happen. Mitigation focuses on structural and non-structural measures to lessen the damage. The example is building stronger leaves, implementing strict building codes like example earthquake resistant structures, and land use planning to prevent building in flood zones. Second phase is preparedness, that is pre-disaster. Uh, while mitigation attempt to prevent damage, preparedness focuses on how to act when a disaster is imminent. This is about building the capacity to respond effectively. Example, developing a evacuation plan, stocking emergency supplies like food, water, medicines, and conducting training drills for first responders and citizens. The third phase is response, that during disaster. The response phase occurs immediately before, during, and directly after a disaster strike. The primary goal is to save lives, prevent further property damage, and meet basic human needs. Example, search and rescue operation, providing emergency medical care and setting up temporary shelter for displaced people. Recovery means post disaster. Recovery begins as the immediate threat to life has passed. It involves restoring the community to its normal state, or ideally a state that is better prepared than before. Short term recovery means restoring essential services like water, electricity, and telecommunications. Long term recovery means rebuilding homes, restoring the local economy, and addressing the psychological impact on survivors. What is it, a cycle? It is reviewed as a cycle because the phases are interconnected. The lesson learned during the recovery phase often lead back into mitigation and preparedness for future events. This continuous feedback loop helps communities become more resilient over time. That's all about this disaster management cycle. And the next slide is resilience and coping. And this point is mainly focuses on the dual concept of resilience and coping, significantly within the context of community development and disaster management. The first point is building resiliences. That means slide defines building resilience as enhancing a community's ability to recover. Resilience is more than just surviving a crisis. It is the capacity of a system, community, or a society. Withstanding initial impact of disaster or economic downturn, the main adapt is changing internal processes to function under new stressed conditions. The recovery means returning to a state of normalcy with a minimal long-term damage. The second point is focus on sustainable rural development. The second point highlights sustainable rural development as the primary vehicle for risk reduction. This suggests that to make a community less vulnerable, you must address the root cause of their fragility. That means sustainability, risk reduction, and rural context. In the case of sustainability, ensuring that developed does not deplete resources so the community remains strong for future generation. The risk reduction means instead of just reacting to disasters, this approach proactively strengthens infrastructure, diversifies the local economy. That means moving beyond single crop farming and improve social services. In the rural context, rural areas often have less access to immediate emergency services, making self-sufficiency and built-in resilience vital. The main takeaway of this slide is the core message of this slide is proactive preparation rather than waiting for crisis to occur and then providing aid or coping. The goal is to invest the community's structural social foundation so they can bounce back on their own. That's all about this slide. Next topic is biopiracy. Biopiracy refers to the unauthorized use or exploitation of biological resources and the traditional knowledge associated with them. It is typically occurs when corporations or researchers from developed nations utilize genetic materials like plants, animals, or microbes, or indigenous practices from developing regions without providing fair compensation or seeking legal consent. And the main core concept is exploitation of resources, traditional knowledge, and lack of benefit sharing. Uh, Exploitation resources means taking biological materials like seeds, medicinal plants, and patenting their derivatives for commercial gain. Traditional knowledge means TK, that is utilizing the wisdom passed down through the generation by indigenous communities regarding the properties and use of local flora and fauna. In the case of lack of benefit sharing means the failure to share profit or recognition with the original owners or custodians of these resources. Coming to the topic, concept of biopiracy. And this slide introduces the concept which refers to the unethical or commercial exploitation of biological materials and traditional knowledge. The main point is unauthorized use of biological materials and indigenous knowledge. That means biopiracy occurs when researchers or individuals or large corporations utilize biological resources like plants, animals, or microorganisms and the traditional knowledge associated with them without obtaining permission from the rightful owners, usually indigenous communities or the country of origin. Include seeds, medicinal plant. What are the biological materials? Seeds, medicinal plants, genetic sequences. Indigenous knowledge means the specialized knowledge developed by local communities over generations, such as knowing which plant can cure a specific ailment. Second point is misuse of intellectual property system. And this point highlights how legal frameworks such as patents are sometimes used to claim exclusive ownership over resources that should belong to the public or a specific communities. The corporations may patent a naturally occurring gene or a traditional medicine. Once a patent is granted, the original community might be legally barred from using their own resources or forced to pay for them. Then lack of benefit sharing means in biopiracy, the profit made from these discoveries are rarely shared with the communities that originally discovered and preserved the knowledge. Main classical examples of biopiracy is neem tree, basmati rice, turmeric. In the case of neem tree, a company once patented a process for using neem oil as a pesticide. India successfully changed this, arguing that neem's medicinal and insecticidal properties had been part of Indian traditional knowledge for centuries. In the case of basmati rice, a US based company attempted to patent basmati rice lines and grains. This was seen as a biophrasy because basmati is a traditional variety unique to the Indian subcontinent. In the case of turmeric, a patent was once granted for the use of turmeric in wound healing. It was later revoked because it was proven that this use was ancient knowledge in Ayurveda. That's all about the concept. Next is invasive alien species or IAS. And this slide provides a concise definition and specific example. Sorry. Of invasive alien species or IAS, which are a major concern in ecology and conservation biology. The main content is what is IAS? What are invasive alien species? According to this slide, these species have two defining characteristics, that is non-native, threatening. Non-native means they are alien species, meaning they have been introduced either internationally either intentionally or accidentally to an ecosystem outside of their natural historical range. Threatening means unlike most non-native species which might be harmless, IAS or invasive alien species are invasive because they spread rapidly and cause significant harm to biological diversity. Why are they a problem? Invasive species often lack natural predators in their new environment. This allows them to outcompete alter habitats, cause economic loss. Outcompete means native plants and animals for food, water, and space. Alter habitat means making them unsuitable for local wildlife. The cause economic loss means particularly in agriculture, forestry, and fishing. The slide highlights two specific botanical invader commonly found in tropical and subtropical region, that is Chromolina odorata, Siam weed. It's a shrub. The main impact is known for its extreme rapid growth. It forms dense thickets that smother native vegetation and prevent the regeneration of forests. It is also highly inflammable, increasing the risk of wildfires. The second example is Prosopis juliflora is mesquite type beads or small tree. Main impact, while it was originally introduced in many places for fuel wood and fodder, it has become a superweed. It has deep taproot that deplete groundwater level and aggressive thorns that can displace native pasture land, making the land unusable for livestock and native herbivores. The main takeaway is an alien species only become an invasive species when its presence result in negative impact on the environment, economy, or human health. Next is impact of invasive species, and this point highlights two significant ways invasive species disrupt natural environment. When a non-native species enters a new area, it often lacks natural predators, allowing it to exert these pressures on the local flora and fauna. The allelopathic effect is allelopathy is a biological phenomena where a plant releases specific biochemicals known as allelochemicals into the environment to influence the growth, survival, or reproduction of other organisms. The main mechanism is these chemicals are typically released through the roots, leaf litter, or volatilization from leaves into the soil. Inhibiting growth means in the context of invasive species, this is essentially chemical warfare. The invasive plant poison the soil for native species, preventing their seeds from the germinating or stunting the growth of established plants. The competitive advantage is by eliminating neighbors, the invasive species secure more space, sunlight and nutrients for itself, often leading to monocultures where only one type of plant grows. Example is Lantana camara and Parthenium hysterophorus are well-known examples of invasive plants that use allopathy to displace native Indian vegetation. The next point is changing the structure and function of ecosystem. That means beyond individual plant competition, invasive species can fundamentally rewrite how an entire ecosystem works. The structural changes means physical architecture. For example, invasive vines like kudzu can blanket entire forest, breaking tree limbs and changing the physical layout of habitat. And habitat loss means when in native plants die out due to competition or allelopathy, the animals that depends on them for food or nesting those their homes. The functional changes means a nutrient. In the case of nutrient cycling, some invaders changes how nitrogen or phosphorus move through the soil, making it less suitable for original species. In the case of hydrology, certain invasive trees like eucalyptus or Prosopis juliflora can significantly lower the water table, affecting local water availability. In the first regimes, some invasive grasses dry out quickly and burn more easily, increasing the frequency and intensity of wildfires in areas not adapted to fire. Next is biological welfare and terrorism. And this slide provides a high level of definition of biological warfare and terrorism, focusing on the intentional misuse of pathogens. The main definition of deliberate dissemination is the core of biological warfare is the intentional release of harmful biological agents, unlike a natural outbreak like seasonal flu. These events are engineered or orchestrated by human to cause harm. And this point categorizes these agents into three main types, that is bacteria, virus and toxins. Bacteria means single-celled organism, example Bacillus anthracis, which causes anthrax. Viruses mean pathogens that require a living host to replicate, example smallpox or Ebola. Toxins means poisonous substances produced by living organisms, example botulinum toxin or ricin. The second is strategic target. Strategic target means this point notes that these attacks are not always aimed directly at human health. They can also be used to destabilize a society economically or logistically. Targeting people, the goal is to cause mass illness, death, or widespread panic within a population. This puts immense pressure on healthcare system and emergency responders. Uh, Targeting agriculture means often referred to as agroterrorism. This involves attacking livestock or crops. Example: foot and mouth disease or wheat stem rust. The intent is to cause food shortage and massive economic loss. What is biological warfare versus bioterrorism? While the slide groups them together, there is a subtle distinction in how these terms are usually defined. Biological warfare means typically refers to the use of these agents by nation states during an official conflict or war. Bioterrorism means refers to the use of these agents by non-state actors, extremist groups or individuals to achieve political, social or ideological goal through their fear. Next is Traditional Knowledge Digital Library or TKDL. And this slide introduces the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library or TKDL, a pioneering Indian initiative designed to protect the nation's heritage from exploitation in the global patent market. What is TKDL or Traditional Knowledge Digital Library? It is a digital repository of India's traditional medical wisdom, specifically focusing on systems like Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, and Yoga. It was created to bridge the gap between ancient Sanskrit or regional texts and modern pattern examiners. It translates ancient knowledge into five international languages like English, French, German, Spanish, and Japanese, making it accessible to patent offices worldwide. How to prevent biopiracy? Biopiracy occurs when corporations or researchers from developed nations use biological resources or traditional knowledge, means indigenous to another country without permission or compensation, often by claiming it as their own invention. Example, in the 1990s, patents were wrongly granted in the US for the wound healing properties of turmeric and the antifungal properties of neem. Since these uses were already well known in India for centuries, India had to fight expensive legal battles to revoke those patents. The TKDL, or Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, was created to ensure this never happened again. Evidence of prior art. To get a patent, an invention must be new or novel if the knowledge already exists. It is called prior art. The main problem is patent examiners in Europe or the US often could not read ancient Indian texts, so they did not know the inventions was actually old news. The TKDL solution means it provides searchable evidence of prior art. When a company tries to patent a traditional Indian remedy, the patent examiner can check the TKDL while the original reference and reject the patent application immediately because it is not a new discovery. Main takeaway is TKDL, or Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, act as a defensive shield. It does not stop people from using traditional knowledge, but it stops them from owning it through patents, ensuring that India's cultural heritage remain in the public domain for everyone's benefit. Next is international provisions. This slide highlights two major international framework that govern how the world manages biological resources and intellectual properties. Essentially, it covers the tension or cooperation between protecting nature and protecting inventions. The Convention on Biological Diversity, or CBD, means it is a landmark international treaty focused on conservation of nature. While it has several goals, the slide highlights its most socio-economically significant one: fair benefit sharing. The goal is to ensure that when a company or country uses biological resources like a rare plant or traditional knowledge from another country to create a product like a new medicine, the provider country receive a fair share of the profit or technology. Why it matters? It prevents biopiracy, where entitled take natural resources from developing nations without permission or compensation. And next is TRIPS, or TRIPS, trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, is an agreement managed by World Trade Organization, or WTO. It sets the global minimum standard for how government should protect intellectual property, or IP. The main scope is it covers the everything from patent and copyright to trademarks. The connection to CBD is TRIPS, or trade related aspects of intellectual property right, is often discussed alongside biological diversity because it dictates how invention derived from natural can be patented. The main key conflict is there is often a debate because these two provisions, TRIPS focuses on private ownership right or patent, while CBD focuses on um, sovereign and right over natural resources and community benefits. That's all about this slide. Next is the summary of this presentation. This point and the slides emphasizes that environmental sustainability cannot be achieved by looking at issues in isolation. It highlights the interdependence of natural resources and the necessity of structural change in India's governance and policy. The main point is the interlinked nature of natural resource threats. Environmental changes are not siloed. When one resource is compromised, it creates a domino effect on others. The main key concept is the interconnectedness is often referred to as the nexus approach. For example, a land threat like deforestation leads to water threats like flooding, which ultimately destroyed biological habitat. Second point, the path forward, integrated management and policy, because the threats are connected, the solution must be as well. The slide suggests two pillars of India's future, that is integrated management and policy revamping. That's all about this presentation, and you can use this presentation for further study. I will upload the next blocks in MST 17. So you share, like and subscribe my channel. Thank you.